All right. Well, we have a couple more people coming in, but we have lots of great content to go over today. My name is Savannah. I'm the administrative director for Emerald Cove Day Camp and Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp. And I'm so excited to welcome our directors as we talk about zooming up to Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp. But before we get to that, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items for today. So this is a recorded webinar. We will have it on the day camp website. You'll also receive it in an email later today. And we also have a Q&A portion at the end of our conversation. So make sure below you put any questions that you may have for either our day camp directors or our YSSC directors. Excuse me. And from there, we will answer those questions at the end of the program. So feel free to do it. Put those questions in throughout the whole conversation, but we will get to them towards the end. But without further ado, I'm going to tee it off to our day camp directors, and they will introduce themselves and give you more information about our conversation today.
Well, good morning, ECDC families. My name is Dylan Wade, or your camper might know me as Levi, and I'm the director of Emerald Cove Day Camp. With me this morning on the other screen is Cameron Ostrander, also known as Camo. And today we're hoping to shed some light on our sister sleepaway camp up in Bass Lake, California, called Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp, or as we like to say, YSSC. So there are a couple reasons for why we are sharing these insights today on YSSC. First, we want you to know that we're passionate for kids' growth, not just from 5 to 10-year-olds, but for all the way up to 16. That's why we have this other camp, is to see that growth continue on. So we hope you see that passion that we have for those age groups today too. And the second reason is that this decision to move on up to a sleepaway camp is not a small one for parents. And it's natural for parents and campers to have a lot of questions and concerns before they commit to a summer away from home. So, and then the last reason is that there is a deadline coming up, October 1st. There's going to be a tuition increase. And so we want to give you all the details about YSSC to make that decision and maybe even save some money. So we hope this Zoom will help you and your friends answer these questions and help reduce any concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to go over a brief roadmap of today, in a minute, we will introduce two of our YSSC directors, and they will give you a brief overview of YSSC. And then we will have two parents, just like you, to share their experience from this past summer of sending their camper to YSSC for the very first time. Finally, we will open up the floor to you guys to answer any of your questions that you might have. So go ahead and start typing those questions in the chat, and we would love to answer them later.
Great. Well, let's get started by introducing two of our YSSC directors and welcome them onto the screen. So we have Sarah Coulias, or Salsa, as our executive director and owner. And with her is Jessica Peterson, or Sprinkles, our associate director. So Sarah, why don't you start us off with a brief history of YSSC and ECDC?
I would be delighted to. I'm really grateful for the chance to share a little bit more about Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp with you. If your child thrived at Emerald Cove Day Camp, there's a really good chance that YSSC is a fit for them. As the parent of 3 young adult children myself, I remember especially when my kids were younger, really working hard to find programs and voices and enrichment opportunities that reinforce what we were trying to teach our kids at home. Voices that echoed those messages and lessons we were trying to build into their lives so that they could be their best selves. And I hope that as you explore YSSC more, that you might find we are a partner in that effort for your family. So YSSC was started back in 1973 by my parents, Jim and Manya Slevko. They had already had years of camp experience and leadership at really fine conference centers like Hume Lake and Forest Home. And then they started getting a nudge, a call to start a different kind of camp experience for kids. One that was much smaller with more personalized care, one that was longer than a week for more growth opportunities, and one that through fun and play and adventure and nurturing could address the growth of a whole child, emotional, social, relational, and with regards to faith, understanding that there's a big God who loves them unconditionally, not just at home, but also away from home. And so in 1973, we had one session. I think there were 54 campers, and I was 10 years old, and I remember everything about it. I remember my counselor's name. I remember my cabin name. I remember what room I was in, room 5 in the dorm.
It's a good one.
You can tell it was really impactful. Fast forward to 1998, my husband and I had just had our first child, and we were really longing for more purpose and more meaning and more legacy in our careers. So we left our current careers and we took the helm of YSSC and just wrapped our 27th summer this last summer. In fact, this last summer, it was Yosemite Sierra's 51st birthday. So we have never looked back, and we're crazy about this kind of work. Those of you attending the Zoom today may recognize YSSC's mission to help kids grow in character, honesty, courage, empathy, skills. Could be archery skills, could be wakeboarding skills, could be brushing your teeth skills without being reminded, could be dressing yourself skills, all kinds of skills. Relationships, friend making skills, friend keeping skills, and solid, supportive relationships with really cool young adult staff who, when they say what I said all year long, it sounds way cooler and even more right. And finally, besides character skills, relationships, faith, understanding that there's a God who wants to know them personally and who loves them no matter what and never leaves their side. That same mission is ECDC's mission as well. When in 2007, after years and years of parents coming to us and saying, gosh, my child's 6, she can't go to YSSC yet. We serve 8 to 16-year-olds at YSSC, but we can't wait for her to have that camp experience. Can you do something locally here in Southern California? Or gosh, you know, our camper's 9 and he could go to YSSC, but he's not quite ready yet. Can you please do something locally? And it was in 2007, my husband and co-director Steve found a location, and he came home and he said, we're doing this. And so we did. And wow, we fell madly in love with the day camp program. We took aspects of YSSC and adapted them for the age group and in a day camp setting. And we just fell in love with the impact that 2 weeks at day camp can have. So that's how day camp came around, and that's our sweet sister program and how we're connected. Now, I will say there are times parents will say, I don't get the name difference. Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp. Okay, it's up near Yosemite, but how did Emerald Cove Day Camp get its name? Well, I'd like to explain that. The location of our camp in Bass Lake, which is just south of Yosemite National Park, the name of our location, our property, is Emerald Cove Camp. Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp is our summer program. So when we started the day camp, we borrowed that location name. And so sometimes we refer to camp as Emerald Cove, sometimes it's YSSC, sometimes it's day camp. I'm sorry for the confusion.
It's all in the happy family.
Yeah, we're all connected. We all belong together. So that's just a little bit of background. And I'd like to pass it over to Jessica, or Sprinkles, as the kids call her, just to share a few highlights of that sleepaway experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, well, there are so many things that I could share. So I promised I would keep it focused and brief to the best of my ability. When your camper comes home from spending 2 weeks at YSSC, whether they come back on the bus, we have a charter bus that drops them off in Orange County at the end of the session, or you come up and you pick them up at camp, get to hang out with Sarah and I. At the end of your campers 2 weeks at YSSC, you will notice that they grew a ton in a safe environment that allowed them to be unplugged. You will see that they grew like crazy in a safe environment that allowed them to be tech-free, unplugged from technology. It is our goal, like Sarah just said, it is our goal for every single camper who comes on campus, who spends 2 weeks with us at YSSC, that they would grow in character, in skills, in relationships, and faith. You better believe that 2 weeks spent in those little family groups, those cabin groups with their peers, they are going to grow in character, skills, relationships, and faith. Oh my gosh, friendship making, friendship keeping skills are so important. There's so much research and the importance behind what it means to step away from home, to get the opportunity to ask big, awe-inspired, faith-filled questions, and they get to watch very cool young adults model what it looks like to live out their Christian faith in their day-to-day life. They get to come home building those independent faith muscles, saying, actually, this feels like my faith, not just my home faith or my parents' faith. You know, they get to experience incredible new activities, lots of activities that are special and unique to a camp setting, incredible new activities, and try on new skills. And I mean this when I say hopefully fail at least once or twice, because we know that man, it's so much more important for them to learn that resilience skill, what it means to get back up and try again, over what it means to get it perfectly the first time, right? It's so much more realistic. We all have to learn that skill. And camp is an incredible place to do that. You know, when I was thinking about talking about, man, some of the growth that our parents see in our campers when they come home, I was looking through our parent survey from this last summer, the survey that parents just like you guys filled out last week and the week before and the month prior, all throughout the summer. And the number one thing that parents time and time again recognize in their child when they come home from YSSC is this incredible growth in confidence. Confidence just rings through over and over again. And I pulled a couple just to read them because you guys as parents say it so much better than we do. Let me just read a couple of quick things. This one mom said, man, my daughter, when she came home, she realized that when she challenges herself, she can achieve, and her confidence just grows exponentially. Another parent said, my son came back with greater confidence. He started school this week, and I was so impressed with how he connected with his peers. The last one, this parent said, my son came home a different kid. He's always been awesome. I love that she said that. He's always been awesome, but he came back more mature, taking initiative more often, more responsibility, and being just generally more appreciative. I wish that we could read this whole spreadsheet and just celebrate all these incredible campers because it's so special. But what I love, the growth that these parents are seeing, it is just a testament to all of the effort and love and support that you guys as parents are investing 365 days of the year, day in, day out. It is all your fault that they are growing so much. And it just speaks to a willingness to trust us, to come alongside, be partners with you in all of your parenting efforts, and simply fan the flames of what you guys are doing at home all year long. So I said I'd keep it brief, so I'm going to move on. But all of that growth is truly, yes, it's a testament to you guys as parents and all that you guys are doing. And it's a testament to the environment of safety that we strive for at camp. There's just no way around it. A child cannot and will not have the courage and bravery to try something new, to be vulnerable, that's vulnerable, right? To step out of their comfort zone and take positive risks if they do not have a foundation of safety. And that's both physical and emotional safety. Those are so important. And so we do our best to strive for an incredible culture of safety. To name just a few things, we are ACA accredited, which basically means that there's an accrediting body that makes sure that we adhere to 300 plus standards that ensure that we are running a quality program. We have a rigorous staff hiring process to make sure that only the best of the best are with your kids. And we have thorough staff training. We have weeks and weeks, I mean it, weeks and weeks of staff training, all before a camper ever steps foot on campus, right? And we have a health center, of course, that is staffed with, on-site RNs, with nursing students. We have on-call doctors. We have established relationships with local walk-in clinics and hospitals. We have done our best to ensure safety for your camper. And I know that this is such an important topic. This is probably one of our number one asked, topics. How is the health and safety of our camper going to be ensured at camp? And so if you have general questions about health and safety, please pop those in the chat. We'll, we've mentioned, we'll do some Q&A at the end. But if you have any specific questions, like my camper takes that one medication, or they're doing a nut reintegration program, we've seen it all, folks. So feel free to call us. We'd be happy to chat through what it could look like to, support your camper at camp. So all that growth in a safe environment with the opportunity to be unplugged. And that's just the last thing that I'll touch on. It is a rare gift for campers, even at 8, 9, 10, 11, to experience moments, to experience an environment that's unplugged, the opportunity to step away from technology. This one mom said it best, so I'm going to read her words. She said, YSSC is an amazing experience for many reasons, but for me, the top contender has got to be the no technology policy. Being able to disconnect and fully immerse themselves in adventure is rare and epic. My daughter has said that leaving the phone behind allows her to live a more authentic life and invest in others that are also experiencing a bold and undiluted version of themselves for 2 weeks. We truly feel this program helps young people figure out who they truly are and who they want to be. Disconnect. Fully immerse in adventure and experience an unplugged, authentic, undiluted version of themselves. It is rare to experience an unplugged environment, and it's practically unheard of for a kid to experience that environment alongside their peers who are also unplugged, ready to make that face-to-face connection. It is such an important reset. So like I said, I could talk all about this all day long, but we actually have people who are more important for you to hear from. So I'm going to toss it back to Dylan, to Levi. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah and Jessica. It's wonderful to get all that context and all those benefits to sending your kid to camp. I know as a parent who sends my 3 kids there, and having worked at YSSC and ECDC for the last 20 or so years, I'm learning something new all the time. So wonderful. Thank you. But now we don't want you guys just to take our word for it. We would like to take some time to hear from some who have recently had a camper jump up to YSSC and take their word. So I would like to introduce you to Amber and Matt Koffold. And so they have been longtime ECDC parents who had a ECDC grad, Wyatt, making the jump to YSSC this past summer. So Amber and Matt, thank you for joining us. And Amber, why don't you just start us off by telling us a little bit about your family?
Absolutely. Wow. After hearing all that, I'm ready for summer and ready for camp again. That is very exciting. Like Levi mentioned, we're the Koffold family. I'm Amber and this is Matt. We have two boys, Wyatt, who's 11, who just had his first year at YSSC, and Waylon, who's 8, who loves ECDC, but is chomping at the bit to get up to YSSC. We go to Ambiel Elementary and live in San Juan Capistrano. We're ingrained in our community. We love San Juan. The boys play sports and we're connected to school through various PTA events. But yeah, that's our family.
Cool. Yeah, I have getting to know Wyatt and Waylon has been a pleasure, and getting to know you two as well. So for the both of you, what helped you guys tip those scales to commit to sending Wyatt to YSSC for 2 weeks away from home? So can you walk us through that decision-making process for you guys as a family?
Absolutely. Maybe I'll take this one because I think I needed the most convincing, I guess, and I'll explain why. We were really lucky because we already had the foundation of ECDC as the ultimate highlight of summer for the boys, but also as an extremely comfortable setting with very high standards, from the staff and then carried out through the counselors. So we came into it with a lot of comfort in the entire team. And the desire to jump up to YSSC was really driven by Wyatt. It wasn't really us pushing it at all. He came to us and said, he graduated from ECDC and said, "Mom and Dad, I'm ready. I'm not even going to entertain a second thought. I want to go. What do I have to do to go?" And I think, we both had a lot of discussions about it. Is he ready? He's very mature in some ways, and I'll say very immature in other ways. And I think you were very supportive from day one. I had reservations. I went to summer camp as a kid, and I remember I still have core memories of summer camp. So I know how important it is, but I had to really get to that, nth degree of comfort in order for me to think that Wyatt was ready. And I had some concerns, and I'll say the biggest impact for me was listening to the mornings on the porch sessions. And if you guys haven't shared that yet, I'm sure all the families will hear about that. But I listened to every single mornings on the porch. Little tip: I just put it on in my car and I listened to the audio. There's video as well, but the audio is what I was interested in. And I listened to them to and from work every day, and I listened to every single one. And it was so comforting to know that every question, every hesitation, every fear that I had was also shared by probably every other family and has been asked and addressed, and most importantly, thought through by the team. So, listening to these mornings on the porch, it answered all my questions. It reinforced the high standards that I already knew were there at ECDC, but on such a grander scale at YSSC. And that for me is really what tipped the scale. I knew Wyatt would be safe. I knew Wyatt would be cared for, looked after, and I knew he'd have this amazing opportunity for growth. And so I really credit the mornings on the porch sessions for kind of getting me there.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad that you shared that. We'll get into a little bit more about when those are coming up. We have a whole full slate of mornings on the porch coming, but I'm glad to hear how that impacted your decision making there too. I mean, that's what we've designed them for. So it's cool to see it, to see how it's been impactful to you guys.
I went back to prior years. I went through, you have the whole catalog. I mean, I listened to every single one. I wanted every piece of information and data that I could get, and I got it. They were great.
Great. As you should. So, okay, so let's move on to talking about the summer when you guys drove up there and dropped Wyatt off at camp, and then you came back down that very same day. So how did you navigate those next 2 weeks as parents? Were there some big feelings in there, or are there any surprises along the way?
Like you mentioned, we did decide to drive Wyatt up to camp. We had never been up in that area, so we wanted to see where he was going to be staying, meet some of the staff, and just get a little taste of it before we dropped him off. It's so funny because as soon as we pulled up, he had his bag and he's like, "Okay, Mom, Dad, I'll see you later." We were like, "We're going to get out. We're going to meet everybody. We'd like to meet your counselor." So I will say the staff did a really good job of welcoming the parents as well as the camper. They gave us a tour. We got to see where he was going to sleep, where he was going to use the restroom, where he was going to eat. And I think both Matt and I felt comfortable saying bye to him at that point once we got to see the environment and experience the feel of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend that for any first year camper family. Obviously Bass Lake's a beautiful place to go to. We went up one day early. We stayed at the Pines, which is very close to camp, and got a taste of Bass Lake. And then, as Amber said, drove him to camp and got to meet everybody, including his counselor, got to see his cabin, got to see the restrooms, which was a big question. You know, how's that going to work? Got to see where he eats. So that gave us just another level of comfort. And I, you know, I was 99.99% convinced, but if I felt anything wasn't right on that personal tour, you know, we would have had a family meeting and talked about it, but it was the exact opposite of that. It just reinforced everything that I had heard and expected. And it made us really comfortable and made what could have been a very difficult driving home, you know, without our 10-year-old at the time boy, much easier. And we actually enjoyed the drive home. And I'll add, you know, during the 2 weeks, there's some other things that really help. I think the pictures, you know, every day there's pictures posted. Every day I would come home from work. You know, Amber would come home from work, and our youngest son would come home from camp or whatever activities he had, and we'd sit around the computer and we'd go through the pictures, and we would be able to share in and really kind of check in on how engaged was he? What are his facial expressions? Who's he with? Is he by himself? And every picture we saw just further and further reinforced the decision that we made, because he was all in, and we could tell from these pictures that he was all in. Face paint, costumes, you know, talent show, all kinds of things. So that's a really cool thing that you guys offer, because it allows us to kind of check in without interrupting the space that you've created for his personal growth. So it became like the highlight of the day, looking at these photos, which was really cool. And then I think the last thing I'll add is, one thing that we didn't expect is it gave us, or we didn't think about, I guess, it gave us a really special opportunity to connect with our other son on a totally different level as the only child for those 2 weeks. And that was really important, and it was really rewarding for all of us. So, you know, for parents of multiple children, if there's one kid who's staying back, they're going to be jealous because they're going to want to be there. But it gives the family such a cool opportunity for 2 weeks, which is a lot of time to just regrow those bonds and connect with your other kid on a really unique level that you don't get during the rest of the year. So that was kind of an unexpected benefit, and also, you know, helped us get through those 2 weeks of missing our other son. Is we just had a chance to really connect with Waylon on such a deeper level. It was really cool.
I just want to piggyback on that real fast, because a lesson that we learned as parents, we were so involved in getting Wyatt ready for camp, right? Like, my thought was, I got to get Wyatt ready to be gone for 2 weeks. I need to prepare him. At the same time, I was preparing Matt for letting Wyatt go as well, because he was struggling a little bit. And honestly, Waylon, our other son, kind of fell to the wayside, unfortunately. I don't think I took into consideration his feelings of his sibling being gone for 2 weeks. They had never been separated for, honestly, more than a day. So that was a learning curve for our family, was coaching Waylon, encouraging Waylon, giving him an environment to be able to speak his feelings and feel his feelings and to be okay with those. And that really helped our bond as well. I will also say we sent Waylon to ECDC during the time that Wyatt was up at YSSC, and that was a huge help too. The counselors knew what was going on with Waylon. They embraced him, they loved him, they cared for him, and it was an amazing experience at the end of the day.
And lo and behold, he actually missed his brother. So not only did it strengthen our bonds with our kids, it strengthened the bonds between the two. I've never seen them hug each other like they did when Wyatt got off the bus. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting off the bus, you know, what did you guys see when he got off the bus, when he came back? You've spent these 2 weeks away. You're watching it. You're seeing the photos and videos, and you're putting all these things. But what was his story like when he came back? What did you see as a result of 2 weeks away?
So I had heard about the camp blues, and I was like, okay, trying to process the feeling of the camp blues. Well, when Wyatt walked off the bus, he looked dirty, and
which is great, which
is amazing,
which was awesome.
We always want him to
look like he had fun, is what he looked like.
And he was crying, to be honest with you. He was sad, but it wasn't like a sad. It was like, I'm sad, but I had the best time ever, like I could have ever had in my life.
He didn't want to leave. But it was cool to see in a 10-year-old boy at the time, again, this mix of emotions of being so sad that camp is over, but so appreciative that he's back home and he's with his family, and didn't want to admit to missing us, but you could tell that he did.
Yeah.
But I think all of the growth goals that we had for him were all achieved. He came back with, you should have been in the car ride home from the bus drop off. He had amazing stories. So we could tell he created these amazing core memories. And he still talks about them to this day, and he still sings camp songs. We still hear the banquet songs, every time we have cake, we hear the banquet cake song. New friendships, strength and faith. Yep. And as the parent attestation said, this boost of confidence it's real. He came back, like I said, he was very mature in some ways, immature in others. Those areas where he was lacking maturity, his maturity had boosted significantly. And I attribute all that to the confidence that he gained by being away from us for 2 weeks. He was, I don't want to say a different person, but an even better version of who he was. He was confident, he was proud. And that's carried on into the school year. We're a month into the school year, and he's expanded his friend group. He's brought new friends into his old friends and grown that group. And I really attribute that to his camp experience. He's got the confidence to be able to approach a new person and say, hey, come play with us, or what are you doing today? Let's do this. And, it's camp life personified in our regular life. And what it's really given him, that I've noticed, and I think you've noticed, is a new energy for these next 50 weeks until the next session, that he's going to approach life in many ways as he approached camp, as an individual with confidence, with a proven track record of being able to do this, with appreciating, challenging himself, and with just this whole newfound energy. So I think every goal that we had hoped for was accomplished.
Awesome. Yeah. Man, that's such a cool story. And as one thing that's really resonated, what you guys have shared, is that piece of confidence, right, that they come home with. It's as a parent who's had my kids come home too from camp, and that confidence is probably the biggest thing you can see right away. And then you see trends of other things as they get back into school and into routines, those continue on. So that's really cool. I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing this story I think you guys have encapsulated just all the things that a parent goes through that process, before camp, during camp, after camp. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share a little bit for our families. And we can't wait to see Wyatt and Waylon next summer at ECDC and YSSC. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Wow, that was great to hear, and we now we know we're past our 30 minutes here, so we're going to probably we still want to get to some good questions here, so we're going to continue on, and so I know we have Savannah curating some of those topics for us, but we're going to start a Q&A portion of the webinar, and I think I'll just start it off with a common question for Sarah and Jess here, and that is, how do I know my child is ready for camp? I think that's the number one thing. So we're just going to kick it off with that. So Sarah and Jess, I'll let you take it from here.
Great. Yeah. Yes, like, thanks, Dylan. Like Levi said, that is definitely one of the number one questions that we get from parents. And kind of the simple answer is, at 8, most 8-year-olds, most 9-year-olds are ready for that next, sleepaway experience. There are some developmental signs that you can be looking for, signs that they're ready for that greater, set of independence. So some of those signs, might include, have they done a sleepover before? And some of our campers certainly come without ever having done a sleepover. So these signs aren't, a checklist to make sure that they, have done, but we find that, if your camper has done, a few sleepovers before, they're probably ready to extend that party for 2 weeks. Other signs, can they get themselves dressed in the morning? Can they pick out their clothes and put them on? They might not always look great.
They don't have to match at camp.
But they do need to be dressed. So can they dress themselves? Another great one is, do they know how and who to ask for help? So when they're in that cabin setting at camp, will they be able to come and ask their counselor, hey, I need some help with something, whether it's big or small? Do they know how to ask for help? Certainly, can they use the bathroom by themselves? Some of these basic, standards for showing that they might be ready to take on a little bit more independence. So there's some clear signs. Not all of them have to be mastered, but certainly you can start working on some of those this year if you're anticipating, sending your kid out to camp this summer. Yeah. What else?
I would also highlight what Amber and Matt mentioned about Wyatt. A lot of times campers, children themselves, are interested in that new experience. And when a child says, hey, I think I'm ready to go, I want to look into this, I want to go. Wow, that shows readiness that sometimes we as parents aren't ready to hear. We sometimes underestimate their capability. I'm speaking from experience. And gosh, they could have made their lunch for school sooner than I asked them to. They should have been doing their laundry last year. Sometimes we overlook the fact that our kids are more capable. So if your camper, your child is saying, I want to look at that sleepaway camp, take time, hop on the website, watch some videos, get to know it more, and ask them a few more questions about what excites you about it. What do you think you will like the most? What do you think will be challenging? What do you want to practice this year so you're even more ready? I think that's really a key. And we actually have a Morning on the Porch podcast from a previous year. We can, Savannah, maybe you can put that link in when we send this recording to go back and look a little more closely at that. I think also it's important, and again, I'm speaking as a parent, to address, am I ready? And, be thinking through those right now. Call us, talk to us. Let's talk through what it's like to have our kiddo be away for 2 weeks. It's a big investment of time and resources.
And we also have a Mornings on the Porch about that. Am I as a parent ready?
Are we ready?
At this rate, Matt could probably share with you all of the insights.
He's in charge.
Learning that he has watched all of them. It's so special. So please, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And then we also have those recordings too.
Awesome. Well, I can kind of give a couple questions that have come through. We are a little bit over, but these are such thoughtful questions. So, one similar to the one that you just answered is probably the most common phone call I get. It's what happens if my child gets homesick at camp? What does camp do to help my camper? What's the protocol? So, great question, and can't wait to answer it later in the year.
All right. I'm happy to start with that one. Research shows that most kids and even some staff are going to miss home for a few days. That's totally normal. We expect it, we plan for it, we train for it. So know that it's not probably if your kiddo misses you, it's when they miss you. What can they do to tackle that and continue on for their full experience? Typically, homesickness shows up in the first 3 days a little bit. By the first Wednesday of the first week, it's almost always gone. And what an important muscle for children to build. It really is a milestone thing to tackle. So when that happens, we hopefully children will say, hey, I'm homesick, or their behavior demonstrates that they're homesick. They might be a little teary at bedtime, for example. And so our staff has strategies about how do we talk through that? How do we normalize that? How do we comfort appropriately? How do we distract wisely with other friendships and with other activities? Sometimes a camper just wants to know that their parents know that they're doing fine. And so they can write a letter home and we'll make sure the parent gets that. On the rare occasion, and it's pretty rare, that a camper's homesickness lasts longer than that Wednesday or is really impacting their time at camp, we're going to call parents and say, hey, help us with more strategies. What other things that can you suggest that might help them feel settled and at home here too? And again, almost always we can tackle that. So I think having a conversation at home about it, when you miss us, here's something to do. Write us a letter. Or when you miss us, say a prayer for us. Or when you miss us, know that it's not going to last very long and make sure your counselor knows. And then we will totally live into that with them. And you know what? I got to tell the story. Dropping my oldest kid off for his freshman year at a very large university. That last goodbye as he took his last bag out of the car and we did the last hug and I'm getting choked up. He turns around and he goes, Mom, I'm going to miss home, but I know what to do with homesickness. And that was from going away to camp. And he went to other camps, not just ours, right? Because he had to practice being independent. And that was so reassuring to me because at 9 years old, he got to practice how you tackle homesickness. And it's the same muscle.
And then after that response, you probably wept even harder.
Oh, I bawled all the way to the airport. Yeah, I did. I was so proud. So we do have a Zoom about that too.
Yep. You can tell we've answered a few of these questions before.
Awesome. Well, we have 2 more questions I'd love for us to answer. This next question, you kind of touched on this, Jessica, but for a parent who has a camper who needs to take medications at camp, can you just explain the process of how that happens during a session?
Absolutely. Yeah. So any medication that your child needs to take, at camp, certainly over-the-counter medications, one-offs, we have those at camp. Any medication that they need to take on a regular, habitual basis, they go ahead and bring that up to camp. It's really important. I'm not going to get into all the weeds because there's lots of good details that you will get prior to arriving at camp, but you'll bring it. You'll make sure it's in its original container. And then that camper will turn into Club Med, which is what we call our health center, the very first day. And so our health center staff then take care of it all session long. So they are helping ensure that your camper gets exactly what they need each day, whether it's at mealtime or at bedtime. All of those are really common, medication times. And so our health center takes care of that, make sure they're good to go. Many of our campers actually experience the practice of remembering to take their medication at camp instead of just having it, you know, at home. And so our health center helps support that. Well, yeah. Anything else you would add?
Oh, just for kids perhaps that have an EpiPen, say for bee stings or something like that. We are a nut-free camp, so no nuts in any of the food that we serve. But for those who need to carry an EpiPen, we recommend they bring two. One we keep at Club Med, and the other one is worn by the counselor in a fanny pack 24/7. So that EpiPen's always with that kiddo wherever they go.
Yep. And like I said, you'll get more information on that, you know, in this spring, but know that it's very common for kids to take medications at camp, and we'll get them all good to go.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, last question as we head out. This is a question that is also very popular, but what is the process for us to hire the staff that we have at YSSC? You know, what are the interviews, background checks, the whole process, you know, those trusted individuals that are with our families' children? How do we get them, and how do we get them to camp?
Oh gosh, how much time do you have? Certainly if there's any specific questions that are tied to this, you know, feel free to reach out. I can give kind of an overview. Essentially, you know, like I said, we have a rigorous hiring process. So, you know, we recruit, we get to know candidates in person often, or they, you know, find us online, and they submit that application. It is a hefty application with thoughtful essay questions. You know, we're getting to know them, their experience. We're learning their background. And then we have every candidate go through at least 2 interviews. So they're always interviewed by at least 2 directors, sometimes more if we have further questions. Incredible opportunity to just ask them more about who they are, what equips them to be able to work thoughtfully with your child, how they would respond, you know, in a camp setting. So all that's really important. And then we have each candidate go through and submit at least 4 references, personal, pastoral, employment references that allow us to get to know them in a way that obviously we couldn't. We get to learn who their people say them to be, right? And so we have at least 4 references. We're on the phone talking with them, listening for those different, you know, responses, and then, you know, we're following up. We get to offer, you know, employment, and we have basically what we call a conditional job offer. And so in between, you know, when we offer them a position and then they arrive at camp, we run all the background checks, the live scans, background checks, running through some of them, you know, their driving records, anything you can think of, we're learning about them. We're, you know, befriending them on social media, all those good things, so that we can be ensuring that you have quality, incredible staff that are coming alongside your campers. And then, if it wasn't hard enough for them to make it through and jump through all the hoops, these individuals wanted to be at camp. The process is lengthy. They arrive to camp, and depending on their position, we train them from 1 to 3 weeks, you know, getting them technically ready to perform their job to the best of their ability. We're making sure that they know, you know, up to date on youth development, on how to be equipped to support your camper. And so we're just, you know, consistently investing in them, you know, for anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks. And then, of course, just ongoing training all through the summer. So there's lots that I can say in nuance for every part of that. But that's just, you know, a small glimpse into what it means to walk someone through the hiring process and bring them on staff at camp.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like that's all the time that we have for today. So on behalf of Emerald Cove Day Camp and YSSC, thank you so much for joining us. We feel so incredibly privileged and honored to continue to support the growth of your family and your camper. So if you know anyone or any other families that would be interested in partnering with us, share this recording with them. You will receive it in an email right after this, and more details regarding our next Zoom gatherings for our day camps, Join the Pod, or for YSSC's Morning on the Porch. So if you'd like to take advantage of that amazing resource that Amber and Matt did, next week on Mornings on the Porch, they will actually be talking about how campers build confidence at YSSC. So if you want to sign up for that, it'll be in the email. And lastly, like we mentioned in the beginning, our YSSC returning family discount ends October 1st, and you all are returning families. So we really want you to feel well informed when you are making this decision. So if you have any more questions, all of us here at the office would love to answer any questions and connect with you. And with that, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for Zooming up to YSSC with us.